Okay, so welcome back from the break. My name is Rosalía Simón, and I'm responsible for smart cities within Telefónica. In the panel of today, the idea is to show how FIWARE can contribute to smart cities projects. This is going to be let's say, a question, less presentation and more question panel. Yeah? And I will be standing because obviously it has been designed for Ulrika, who is much taller than me. So I'm going to be standing up so at least you can see me from the end of the room. Just a brief introduction on smart cities. There is something that here with my team that today I'm lucky to have in the room. We have been working this year in smart cities, which are the 4 key enablers to make sure that a smart city is not just a pilot. There's a question, obviously, about leadership and mission, which is the municipalities having a strategic plan and having a commitment to these kind of plans, so to have a long-term investment in smart cities. There's a key question around financing, so who pays this party? And we cannot always run on subsidies or on investment from other public entities, so we need to find models to finance smart cities. There's a question about regulation changes. So the current contracting of the public administration is not ready to benefit from the digital technologies. And as an example, today the waste management in Spain in most of the municipalities is procured based on the number of people and the number of trucks on the streets, not on the KPIs or SLAs on efficiency or quality of the service. And finally, the one that has to do with today's presentation is the technological model. If each city, if each municipality decides to use a different technological model, there is little space for reusability and for interoperability, which means at the end of the day, and supported by a study of McKinsey or Gartner or Machina Research, that will increase 70% the cost of the deployment of smart cities. So the group of companies betting on FIWARE today and the community also here today, our vision is that by creating open standard APIs and open source code, we are helping municipalities make smart cities a reality beyond the pilot. What is FIWARE bringing here in this technological model? It brings a way to collect data from the city. And by having data from your city, you should be able to start measuring and to improve the efficiency of the services. The other day we were reading on the press that a Spanish multinational had been collecting approximately 800,000 euro more in waste collection because they were lying in the data presented to the municipality. There was no other metric but the one provided by that provider. So we were able to have sensors in the waste collectors, and by using the contest broker of FIWARE to collect that data and analyze it, we should be able to detect anomalies in the data that providers of municipalities provide to the municipality. So what is the other use, or how is the integration that these FIWARE APIs provide? The ones that are here in this room, maybe there's plenty of people here knowing the FIWARE technology, and you know that the contest broker what provides is a way to collect data from different systems and sensors, from legacy and new systems in your city, and then share that data either with the municipality or for other third parties, companies who develop solutions on top of your FIWARE platform. So here is benefits for two entities, the government and the private sector. And that is what we have heard today at the beginning, the introduction by the government here. This is not just about to serve better the citizens on behalf of the municipality, it is also to serve other companies, local companies who want to develop. The technology has, beyond the contest broker, other solutions around data management, from real-time to open data to business intelligence, that you probably know. But you should visit the FIWARE portal if you want to know more about this. And why are we betting on data in the Internet of Things applied to cities? Because there would be a data economy for municipalities in the future. Also because we believe that this interoperability will bring better opportunities to SMEs and companies who develop a solution for a city who has a FIWARE platform and can reuse that same solution in other cities. And finally, because part of the work in the past 4 years, and here we'll see later on, we have been very intense in making sure that there is adoption of these FIWARE standards, there is a recognition in the standards entities of the value of the FIWARE technology, on the one hand, and on the other hand, to make sure that there is traction in the cities. So our end user, in terms of smart cities, obviously, are the cities. So if there is commitment on behalf of the city, there will be success for FIWARE in smart cities. So why everything here? Why this data collection platform for cities based on FIWARE? Because we believe that cities, in the same way as citizens and in the same way as private companies, have relied on being more aware of the data they produce and to exploit the data they produce, the city should mature the level of data use from just awareness, from just knowing what's going on in the city, to even being productive on how they should be serving the citizens. We are in a very early stage today in smart cities. The part of the right is not today yet real life, but we're starting to see cases of cities collecting data just to know what's going on around, and cities collecting data for specific services like metering, like electricity management, whatever, to optimize that service. So this is about, FIWARE is about data collection, and data collection is about data maturity. And today, what we have tried for this panel is to bring the opinion of 3 cities. So we have Ancona, Genoa, and Dordrecht. And then we have someone from TM Forum, as I was mentioning before, someone who could today speak not just on behalf of the TM Forum, which is also relevant, but also on the discussions we have had today, in the past, with cities that approach the TM Forum to understand what standards are available today. The way this panel is going to run is first, you will know who the presenters are, and then there will be 2 key questions. So, first presenter, please.
The introduction. I am Gianmarco Revel. I'm professor at Università Politecnica delle Marche in Italy, in Ancona, where I'm also deputy director for European research. And currently I coordinate a research group which focuses on sensors and development of services based on the sensor and measurement system we develop. So the connection with smart cities and FIWARE is quite straightforward. In the last years, we cooperated very much with the city of Ancona that I'm representing here today, where Ancona is a small city. I explained just very briefly about my city. Ancona is on the Adriatic Sea, so is on the Italian east coast. It's a city of about 100,000 citizens. It's a port city, so we have a lot of tourism and commercial people coming also through the port. And it's the largest city in the area, which is a typical rural area. So it's a little bit a different scenario with respect to many of the smart cities we usually discuss about. The city is really willing to develop new services based on data, and therefore we started a path together with the colleagues from engineering, which is based on FIWARE and technologies.
I work at the strategic planning department of the municipality of Genoa. I'm head of the smart city strategies and European projects. Before this, I was employed for many years at the ICT department and was in charge for the digital city sector, a special sector created to support the smart city project inside the municipality. At this moment, we are only some data about our working on the projects. We are managing more or less 45 projects, strictly related with all the smart city aspect for more or less 45 million euros for all the municipality of Genoa.
I am Theo. I'm working for the community of Dordrecht. I advise strategy and innovation. In Dordrecht, we are working on a smart city concept for 2 years now, because we believe innovation and communication is the key for future development in the city and the needs the city will bring. And for that, of course, you need information. In other words, data. Data is very important. So the gathering from data, IoT in public space, will be important, but also the storage of data and the combining of data. You've got a huge pile of data. How can you combine and find the right data to steer into the city? We do a lot of experiments. We also have a lot of projects with schools. We are participating in different various projects on a small scale because we want to learn from the society what is needed. We don't have the answer. The answer is coming from the society, of course. And one of the projects we are doing is measuring the groundwater levels. That's important for our buildings because Dordrecht is an island and water is always important. And we're working with FIWARE because it's an open standard and we hope it's widely used around the world. Well, today I heard it is. Because it is a start for a much wider use for IoT applications in public space, and because you need all the data from the city to know what's going on and as a steering mechanism. So we do an experiment with FIWARE in combination with LoRa, because we think those two components are the key for future development.
So, good morning, everybody. Well, it's still almost morning, isn't it? So, I suppose I'm the stranger in the group. I'm not representing a city. I'm representing TM Forum, which is a global non-for-profit organization for digital business. How many are cities in the room, by the way? I just would be interesting to sort of understand how many actually represent cities and how many represent industry here. So, how many are cities? Hand up. Nobody? There you go. Perfect, then we know. So, as many of you are aware, in the private sector, people come together to co-create standards to basically drive a community and drive something that will make it possible to compete and to be successful in business. That's what people have come together to do in the forum. We have both the supply side and the demand side represented. So it's a mix of people who have requirements, things they want to buy, and things who have a need to actually, an interest to actually supply those to that same group. So if you can actually come together in an ecosystem like that to co-create shared assets that make it possible to develop something on top of this, then the likelihood of actually growing the industry is much, much bigger. And this is something we have done in the telecoms industry. The greatest claim to fame for TM Forum, I suppose, is the fact that all telecommunications providers, or at least 90% of them around the world, are using the blueprint provided within TM Forum to run their businesses. So fulfillment of services, assurance of services, and the billing of services. And now, as these constituents, 950 organizations, look to expand into other realms of society, then smart city is a very, very interesting next area where we see sort of this group of organizations meeting with this other group of users and with their own requirements and their own needs. We are providing a common mechanism to co-create this future. The thing is, in the private sector, we are much better, actually, at co-creating things together than we are in cities. Cities are good at talking to one another and sharing, but they are not very good at co-creating. And that co-creation mechanism is something we bring into this. And we just agreed a 2-year collaboration program with FIWARE, and we're hoping to do a number of things in that space together.
I listened, Gianmarco, that you mentioned sensors, data services, smart city projects. So what is your vision about the technology required to build all these layers that you have mentioned?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like to maybe give not only my view, which is clearly from innovation and research side, but also the view of my city that I think it's interesting. And it's quite interesting also to see that here today we have very few cities represented, which has to be connected to what the colleagues were saying right now. We have to take care about the demand side from the public administration. because that is going to be in the future the main driver to use technologies like FIWARE in several applications. And that's an important part of the story, in my opinion. My city, as a view that we shared some years ago, it's a small city, as I said before. It's a city close to the sea, so it's a port city where we have a lot of nature. It's close to the rural areas. And so we are very much, we are very much focused on quality of life, also on food, on typical peculiarities that are known from our region all over the world. Our region is the Marki region, and it's well known for tourism, also, for example, in the north of Europe. And in this context, the administration, local administration, would like to improve services to improve the quality of life. And to do that, the vision is to start using more the data, and that's why we were connected with the administration, because right now we have still few data in this context. So sensor, distributed sensing, sensible cities is what is the first step, so collecting the data that we are taking right now with the city. And then we try to make some step further, so we involve the city in the Open and Agile Smart Cities initiative. And we wanted to start from something concrete to show not only to the citizens, but also to the actors in the administration that it was easy to implement something in real practice. And that's why we decided together with the engineering to implement an advisor for parking, so an app that collecting data from the parking stalls, the parking meters, collecting the data from the fines, the permits for the local residents, and the data from the tickets that can be bought online. Uses an algorithm, statistical algorithm that we developed to give an advice to the driver of how long it will take to park in the city. Often, Ancona has a small historical center where it's difficult to park. Sometimes this is crowded. We have about 40,000 people going in and out from the city every day, and this almost double when you have tourists during the summer. So this connected to the easy functionality in Google Maps, where you can estimate how long it takes from where you park to where you have to go, can easily give you an advice on where to park. This was very easily done using FIWARE in a few time. And so now we have something concrete to show, and I think that catching the attention with concrete things of the public administration is the first step. Then people becomes happy to use these kind of things, and the administration is even more involved. So I think that the involvement of the attention of the public administration is one of the main things, because the offer is definitely much larger and aware, I would say, right now. I think here that most of the people involved is people from the offer side rather than the demand side. And therefore the strategy to develop the demand side in a more conscious way, I think it's the key to improve the use of technologies like FIWARE in the future.
45 projects, so plenty of experience to have already an idea of what works.
Okay, so before explain this, I think that I started to explain our experience related to the smart city concept. We started to talk about smart city more or less in 2010, and for this reason, 7 years ago was created the Smart City Association. The Smart City Association aims to collect and engage all the local stakeholders on our territory, to talk about and define a vision for the smart city Genoa, for our municipality. And this means that we have concentrated on some important aspects of the smart city vision, in particular the engagement of the local stakeholder, but also for a strong governance of the process start the city for the process to be a smart city, and then the management of the context data of our territory, and then of the use of the new technology, in particular of the ICT technology. The strategy was implemented with choosing 4 different topics related to the smart city thematics, in particular safety and security, that now we decline as resilience. Then transport, energy, and the port, because Genoa is one of the most important ports. These main topics as also related to our ecosystem and the characteristic of our city, that is strengthened from the mountain and the sea, so the safety and the hydrogeological problems are very, 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 very hard. This is the first topics where we have chosen to test FIWARE in our territory, because we have started some years ago to create the condition of the territory. For condition, I mean the connectivity on all our territory, the creation of the correct infrastructure of devices to collect data and information related to our territory and the problem of the resilience of our urban situation. I think that FIWARE will be very, very important to create a sort of urban platform and then create the condition for the interoperability of all different vertical systems that we are now trying to manage in different ways. And the application of a generic enabler or of an interface data system that can collect and share the data is very, very useful to create new services and efficient and at low cost services. Related to the 45 projects that we managed, we have as a sector project, we are coordinating 45 projects inside the municipality, and our role is to define the requirement, because every project, also the projects that are not in the topics of smart city, properly in the topic of the smart city, have the prerequisite requirements to become a smart city. Because we think that all the project, the smart city is a vision, but we need to implement a requirement in all different topics of our city. And I think that FIWARE is very, very useful also to engage the ecosystem, the local ecosystem of our developer and SMEs, and facilitate the role of the municipality as in the role of the governance of the process, and also facilitate the creation of a sustainability and the business plan more favorable to create a smart ecosystem, urban smart ecosystem.
Your view or your plans of the city with regards to technology?
Our plans, we just like in Genoa, we have a lot of plans. We are doing a lot of things. We believe that data is the keyword, as I already told. So we are training people from us and in the region for data analysts. We have an education program with the University of Utrecht, and even Rotterdam is participating in it. We are recruiting for data analysts. We have, next year we start an innovation fund for small companies to start innovation for the city of Dordrecht, but of course it should be used wider, but it's just for a start. Because we believe you have to start small, and when it's a success, you easily can scale up. As I told, we are working on an experiment with the measuring of groundwater levels, with FIWARE in combination with the LoRa network. We are collaborating with Rotterdam for expanding the LoRa network, because you need a network, of course, to get the data together. And that's a very important development. And the next step is we are going to measure the air quality, because we've got chemical plants in Dordrecht, and people who are living near the plants are concerned about the quality of the air. And after that, we're going to expand it much more widely, because also the temperature, the traffic, all kinds of parameters you want to measure as a city can be measured. We are doing experiments with the University of Delfts for measuring the people who are walking through the center, and it's only a start, because when the technology is further developed, in a few years you can measure every person walking or driving through a city, and you can predict where the queues are going to be, so you are able to take measurements. So it's going to be a huge step, I think.
In your case, Carl, can you brief on what TM Forum plans are for smart cities related to technology?
Yeah, so our plans are to, first of all, make sure that these two worlds collide, see what happens in that crash of different stakeholders. That's one. But our plans are quite simply to make sure that that we can capture the requirements of cities. Not try to build something that will later be used, but actually trying to understand what is it that cities need to do. So we're pulling in roughly up to 100 cities into our community to be able to drive that future and to be able to drive this supply side, really. One of the things we have already done is to announce and also share freely with the world a smart city maturity and benchmarking model. So for anybody who is interested in actually taking a look at what you can, how you could design a city to be smarter, then this model should help. It's also endorsed by people like Smart Cities Council, World E-Governments Organization, or Open and Agile Smart Cities, and others. So we have good international backing behind this model. It will even be launched on an iOS and Android version here before the new year. So that is something that's freely available, and it actually starts with, we have worked with lots of people to figure out what is it that cities need to be able to do, and it starts with, no surprise, leadership and governance. Most smart city leaders today don't have the luxury of having everybody aligned behind their vision. They have to fight and struggle to get something done. So how do you do that? How do you drive that? What do you need to have put in place to be able to be successful in that space? That leads naturally to stakeholder engagement and citizen focus. Only when you have a real aligned vision and governance model will it be easy to actually implement a citizen focus across the city, across city agencies, right? So that becomes the second dimension area. The third one would actually look at data. You can't do any of this, and this I think was touched by every speaker here. You can't really do this unless you have access to the data you need. This is perhaps where FIWARE comes in, shining in its glory in a way. Having data, you also need an integrated ICT infrastructure to be able to support this. So these four aspects all drive levels of smartness in a city. So feel free to take a look. And secondly, just before handing it back to Gian, Rosalía, the other thing we are just starting with FIWARE is to focus on the city as a platform and the data economy. So how can you use the FIWARE city contextual information and approach, and then marry it with what we have developed already in the forum, that's already supported by people like Telefónica, for instance, which are digital partnering APIs. So how could you combine our digital partnering APIs that do everything from billing, revenue share, catalog management, SLAs, you name it, with the city contextual information provided by the FIWARE stack, and thus create an economy of data approach. So that is something we're going to talk about this later in the afternoon. For if anybody's interested, it's a session on that as well.
Listening to all of you, keywords is data, it's collaboration or co-creation and rapid development, having more use cases or very different use cases that you are needing today in your cities, having a local ecosystem and the capabilities, mentioned even education. Now you have today here the FIWARE Foundation, you have the FIWARE community, you have FIWARE users. What would be that request or a couple of requests that you would make from the FIWARE technology going forward? Our motto today.
That's a good question. In my opinion, FIWARE has to become a standard by overcoming limitations that many of the initiatives that have been proposed in last years had, which is quite a broad sentence, because FIWARE has to find a little bit a unique selling point, which is clearly has to start from the European added value of the initiative, but there has also to be to habilitate easiness of use and implementation, capabilities of people being attracted from the business, that right now was not always easy. I'm thinking, while I'm speaking, to a use case that we are facing right now. You know that in Italy we have a welfare which is very oriented to people, but this is currently consuming a lot of our resources. And our region right now is facing, we had a very strong earthquake last month, and with a lot of damages, and we are facing at the same time the emergency of immigrants coming from third countries. So we are out of resources, and I think that the services, our administration is trying to use data to improve services while saving resources. And this capability of activating something which is going a step further what is currently provided, offered by the public administration, has to find in this kind of initiative a real enabler, which requires to have wide diffusion, acceptability as a standard, because otherwise every time it comes somebody that say, okay, but this has this additional feature, and becomes easier to be implemented, and makes the services economically sustainable, which is currently the main problems in generating services. Co-creation is very interesting, but in many cases, then it comes up to be very expensive. So when a service is too much personalized and it's too much tailored, It's then difficult for a public administration to provide it very, very easily. I was very impressed before from one sentence in the presentation of the colleagues from Siemens this morning, lifestyle as a service, what Google is doing, because it's something that we discussed very much with our administration. As I said, that we are very much focused on quality of life, and the administration is very interested in understanding what quality of life means for our citizens. So the capability of entering easily into daily practice has to be the main FIWARE capabilities, in my opinion. And this is not only technical, it's also political, it's also business model, and many other things.
My colleague, and it's difficult to find other arguments, but as I explained before, I think that FIWARE may be a core part of an urban platform for us, and the base to create the standard condition to have a common system where we can create our services, better services, low-cost services, and efficient services. And from another hand, I think that FIWARE may be useful to create the condition to have a bottom-up approach that correlated with a stronger governance may be useful to create the good approach for a better development of a smart city.
Difficult to add something on what my predecessors say. All the cities in the world have the same problems, and they're working on the same solution, and they're not working together enough. So what we need is a global standard which is easily can be used, and that could be a key. We talked to developers a year ago, and they said FIWARE is much too complicated. There are a lot of open standards. We've got our own open standard. Don't use FIWARE. But we believe in a standard that is broadly used. Otherwise, it has no meaning. Everyone has to use the same standard so you can help each other. And more important, things who are developed for Genoa or other cities can be used in Dordrecht, and the other way around. If there is an open standard, and if you have information where the other applications are developed. So you have to know what's already developed, so you can use it. So that should be a point of interest to have a database with all the developed products, so you can learn from each other and borrow from each other, and so it's really becoming an ecosystem.
I may have a slight perspective on standards first, perhaps. I'm a true believer in de facto standards, which means you actually build something with a broad range of companies who are viewed to be leaders in their fields. And by doing it together, you create a movement, an action that will eventually down the line lead to somebody standardizing it, because it suddenly is what the market wants and needs. I see lots of initiatives today where people meet in closed rooms trying to standardize the smart city marketplace, but they don't do it on the back end of proven success. They try to predicate something. And if you try to predicate the future with standards, well, you're that's a dicey proposition. So I would argue, build a strong community that actually does something. That in turn will lead to somebody actually wanting to standardize it in the next phase. That's how the forum has done it with our frameworks model. That was later standardized by large proportions of that by ISO, for instance. So that's one way of looking at it. The other thing is, I think, around consumability. So how do you make the FIWARE proposition consumable? compare it to we all agree it's a platform that we can use, that cities can use, right? But if you compare it to, say, a platform like the App Store, the iPhone App Store model, that phone would be kind of worthless if it hadn't applications on top of it that were easy to download, easy to get, easy to access, easy to buy, easy to deinstall if you didn't like them, right? If we could go in that direction with FIWARE, I think we could create a very vibrant ecosystem and make the decision for a new city who want to come on board not be the decision whether it should be focused on buying a platform that's interoperable, as much as it could actually immediately realize a number of key services it's interested in, a number of vertical application areas. And the interoperability will be the thing you get as part of the deal. That would be my recommendation.
If I can summarize what I take from these panelists, I believe FIWARE has made a lot of progress in the past. We have different cities having used the technology, knowing what they want from here. And what I get is, going forward, what we need is to increase the ecosystem and to lower the barriers of entry from the point of view of the use of the application, and also financially. We are able to create that consumable FIWARE, where it makes easier the life of the municipalities if they can create an economy around this kind of platform and make it sustainable, which is one of the things that we're working, for example, in Spain. I just want to thank you for coming to Malaga. It's a nice place, so it's not like a strong sacrifice, I suppose. In any case, thank you for coming to this panel, and thank you for contributing to the FIWARE community.
Thank you.